So, figured I'd do one of these. I mean, it's practically, yeah, I mean, hey, I figured since I'm kind of straying away from my usual content as an FNF YouTuber, I mean, figured I'd give it a bit of a break because let's be real here, the game dies on its own. And go to more fun things, such as, well, a certain game on Roblox and maybe other games on Roblox, it depends. But mainly one that caught my attention was always Pillar Chase 2, which was a pretty interesting game to say the least. That was basically your average survivors to be exact, versus a killer tower monster in this case. And I've just wanted to kind of put together a little tier list to kind of base them only on things such as how fun they are to play as. Of course, you can see here that we just have, it goes from best being very fun to play as. These are killers that are usually well rounded, or, well, not even that, just, okay. Maybe not just well rounded, it's not really based off of that, but more of just how fun they are to play, and, I'll mostly be going on many others' opinions that I've seen about these, and to be honest, it's fair enough that people have their opinions nowadays. So, I figured I'd start this off with, well, the usual two starter monsters. That being Rosemary and Vapor. Of course, they're both starter characters, so they're not exactly the fanciest, but they still have their somewhat strategies to use. Every killer has a somewhat strategy, if you really want to put it that way, but let's start off with, we'll start off with Vapor. Now, Vapor is for me, Vapor is a very, I've never really played Vapors much, and I must say, it's not the type of killer, or monster, sorry, it's not the type of monster that I'd play, or not many people would play a lot. Really, it's only a killer that, well, new people would use until they probably get all the. It's the same with Rosemary. I mean, they're both starter characters. They're not played as much, and besides, there's always going to be better ones than them, so it only makes sense. But for Vapor, I'd say he's an okay killer or monster, sorry, to play as. While he does have his biggest cripple being his speed, he does kind of make up with that with his teleportation move of being able to summon a demonic shift. Anyone that gets near it, he's able to teleport to it. Of course, it doesn't just have to be that case. He can teleport to it anytime he wants, or he can teleport to anyone who fucking gets hit by like a spider skull or whatever. That's also another thing. He can tell you can summon up to two spider skulls, that type of thing. I think he's just an okay to play as. Of course, he takes a lot of patience to play as. Not my sort of speed. I mean, when it comes to, I have a lot of patience with a lot of killers. I mean, I don't really play many fast ones, but I play relatively like slow ones too. But Vapor is not exactly, we're gonna change that up a bit. We'll go to an air. Perhaps I'm being a little too nice, but hey, I've had many run-ins with Vapor and all of that. Also, another thing I'll be doing is going off how how they are to play against. I could have just done a whole new thing for them about to play against, but that was way too much time, and I don't think there's any point in me doing that. But I'd say Vapor is I guess he's okay to play against, but he's to play as. Vapor, again, easily crippled by his speed, and he's easily outrun, and really the only way he has some sort of tactical advantage, or just an advantage in general, is basically surprising people off guard. Now, there are killers that do that a lot more easier. Of course, I won't say who, and of course we'll kind of just leave it there, but still. He's okay to play against, but he's not okay to play as. He's more of an eh. Now, on to the second one, Miss Amputee over here, Rosemary. Don't know why the picture is cut in half, but yeah, you can tell that's Rosemary. I don't know. They're being very needy with these fucking things. I mean, all these heads missing. I have no idea. But anyways, yeah. Now for Rosemary. I'm gonna have to put Rosemary on the okay to play as. Rosemary is like, while Rosemary is pretty much the opposite as Vapor. I mean, she does take a bit of patience to play as, with her, obvious debuff being, the fact that she doesn't have a lot of stamina, but she's very fast. Faster than the player, if I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure she is faster than the player in general. And, yeah. Now, okay to play against, I'm gonna have to notch that down to an to play against. That mostly being due to the fact that, well, some Rosemary players have a tendency to find you, chase you, and just not get off you whatsoever. They have a tendency to find you, stick on you, and they will just not get off until you are dead. I mean, it's an obvious thing, all right. People have complained a lot about Rosemary. Many people say that Rosemary is a bad killer. I don't think that's the case. Rosemary is actually a good killer when in the right hands. Of course, when it comes to noobs, they'll just probably do the same thing, waste their stamina, and they'll just screw it all up again. But for Rosemary, it's quite the opposite compared to Vapor. She has her speed, and there's of course her abilities, echolocation. Basically, a much more easier way to find people, which makes sense for a killer as fast as her, but also with very little stamina. She also has her blinding ability that increases stamina drain by a bit, and also kind of blinds people. That's more useful on darker and maybe smaller maps. It depends, but if you know your maps well, then you'll know where to go. So it really is. It really just depends on the player itself. But compared to Vapor, she's okay to play as, but to play against, depending on who's playing her, of course, and if they're willing to be as persistent as some would say. Alright, so I'm pretty sure the same one, the next ones we'll go for are either Aloni, EXE, or Fogborn. Of course, we're just mainly going in order of when they kind of came out. But we'll go for Fogborn next. Now, Fogborn he's an interesting case. And honestly, I'd say he's a pretty fun player to kill. He's a really he's a fun one to play as, a fun monster. Of course, when in the wrong hands, it's not a good time. He has more stamina than Rosemary, but he doesn't quite have the speed to catch up to players. He has the same stamina he would have. Of course, he has his abilities: Thunder Warp and Foggy Stare. Foggy Stare, of course, if anyone were to look at you while using it, you go into a crawl mode, you basically become very fast, and you basically become just basically no one will escape you. There's no way, unless they fucking break your knees or something like that. I don't know. Something like that of the sort. Now, and of course Thunder Warp 2, of course, being able to go around the map very fast is definitely a really good one, especially when it tells you where people are. But I mean, even with that, I guess it wouldn't be too much of an issue. But, right then. As for play against, I'd say he's okay to play against. Like, it really okay, so he's fun. Okay, so he's okay to play against, but he's fun to play as. He's not as fun to play against, but he's not fun to play. He's very fun to play. Well, not just fun to play as, but not. So he's okay to play against. That mostly being due to the fact that when you're up against an actual good Fogborn player, it can get quite chaotic, and if Fogborn knows what they're doing, then you might be screwed. Of course, Fogborn was back when I'm pretty sure EXE, Aoni, Springtrap, and even before MX basically. Before MX, Fogborn he was practically known as the Broken Killer because of his abilities to do all that stuff when really it's just as simple. All you gotta do is not look at them, but I guess people just can't stop staring. But I mean, I guess that's just something people have a problem with. Of course, we have a bunch of killers now that are definitely a lot more better than Fogborn, but Fogborn, he's not lost his touch as much. He's been chopped down a notch, alright? I never really paid too much attention to his nerfs, of course. But yeah. So Fogborn, fun to play as, but he's okay to play against. Again, when you're going against someone who's not good at him, then it's gonna be pretty okay to play against. Now for the next one, we're gonna go for EXE right here. The main boy that I usually play way too much, like I'm like level 50, and this it doesn't really matter. But EXE. EXE is described. I can describe EXE as a very strategic killer, having his traps, and the fact that his speed kind of lets him down a bit. Of course, his speed is not the best. He's not really made for chases. He's made for slight chases. That being, if you're close enough to a survivor, you can get a hit on them, and Venue's too slow. Then it's a pretty good combo. It is a good combo. You'll see a lot of people saying it in their tier lists or whatever. In general, yeah, the same thing is pretty much. But I'm gonna have to put him on fun to play as. He can be fun to play as, and he has his things. Too slow, a simple dash move, and I think he's pretty much the only monster who can grab people, unless that's not the case. I'm not too sure if anyone else can do that, but yeah, I think he's the only one who can grab so far, unless I missed someone. But yeah, then you got. But as for playing against, um, ooh, that's gonna be a tricky one. I'd say he's okay to play against. He's okay to play against. Of course, when you're going up against a good EXE player, like a good EXE player is going to put his traps in places that will most likely be the main interest of the map. An example would be with Baldi's School. Now, big maps aren't exactly EXE's specialty. They're not exactly his specialty whatsoever. Big maps are not usually the best for EXE, especially with how much room survivors can be in. Now, for short maps like Fazbear's Fright, that's a bit of a death sentence right there, unless the EXE is just completely dogwank and they are not as good. But other than that, I mean, EXE, yeah. But again, with Baldi's map, I mean, there's really only one area that is the main interest, and that would be the cafeteria, because that's pretty much the only place where you can get any of your type of any of your materials, any of your items, whether it be a Doom's Gauntlet, Ultra Flashlight, Normal Flashlight, and a med kit. So locking that place up would definitely be a game changer. Now, a lot of people, complain about. I don't know if many. I've never really seen anyone complain about EXE in general because, well, they can't exactly. I mean, you have to play. If you want me to sum it up, you have to play EXE like an asshole. You have to play him like a douche. You just have to. If it's either that or you get steamrolled by tryhards and sweats who just continuously outrun you. You just gotta play like that. You have to. Like, it's practically a good excuse. You're EXE. You don't have good speed. You don't have good speed in general. You can be really good, especially, you can rack up a lot of kills if a bunch of people get trapped in your things. You can lock off areas, even during chase. If someone just runs into a room where there's only one door frame, you can simply lock that bad boy up and they have nothing to do. Of course, with the nerf back then, traps used to let people off the traps if they were at exactly 5 HP, but now that's just not the case. They will die if they are very low. It does not matter. So trapping people in rooms is a bit of a. I'll be very honest. It's a very funny move. It's hilarious. And me as an EXE man, it's hilarious nonetheless. But EXE, fun to play as and okay to play against. Of course, again depends on the player. Now, for Aoni, right? Aoni. Aoni is, honestly, I'd say he's practically the same as both Fogborn and EXE. He's fun to play against, okay to play as. Or, no, wait, sorry. Fun to play as and okay to play against, sorry. Of course, Aoni, first time he came out, brings a bit more of an interest, and it definitely takes a lot more patience, given his abilities. Aoni Vision, or just Oni Vision, sorry, which allows you to see everyone on the map for a few seconds. You usually get, like, stamina regen with that, too. And the main gimmick of Aoni, Shapeshift. Being able to shapeshift into anyone in the server, of course, and even yourself if you really want to be a fool like that. But if people see what you look like in the intro, then don't blame them for running away from you when they see you, as you discussed it yourself. But other than that, he brought a lot of interest into the game, and it was definitely a very patient type of monster. Especially with how he's played and all that, it's definitely quite an interesting, very interesting. But yeah, it definitely was. Yeah, it's definitely quite something. He's fun to play against, not as. Sorry, fun, stupid me. He's fun to play as, but he's okay to play against. Again, depends on the player. If it's a bad Aoni, it's not gonna be too much of a hustle. But if it is a pro, or if it is someone who knows what they're doing as Aoni, then you might be screwed. Who knows? He has decent speed, practically having the same sprint speed as survivors, so he can keep up in chases, unlike killers like EXE and Fogborn. It's just the usuals, It's how it works. But yeah, fun to play as, but okay to play against. Now, let me scroll up real quick. You couldn't see it in the preview. Yeah. Baldy, with half his head just fucking. Oopsie, no. Alright. Baldy. Now, most of these killers I have not really played, but I have a good idea of how they're played and how I've played against them and how they usually are played, so really, it doesn't require, like, at this point, I don't really need to play these killers to know how they're played. It's pretty obvious. But, Baldy it's an odd case. It is an odd case. I'd say, it's a hard one. Personal opinions wise, I'd put him under Rosemary as okay to play as. As, of course. Now, with Baldy, it's an odd case, of course, given how his movement is the most unique out of the game. Not simply having you walk like a normal person like anyone else. No, he's a bit unique. He requires you to slap your ruler to move like he does in the actual game. Baldy's basics in educational learning, that's me. But yeah, he's okay to play as. His abilities, being able to place a notebook and being able to see people on the map from what I can see, and his other move, placing a notebook, and whoever gets it, if you get it wrong, then he gets faster. If he gets it right, if you get it right, well, you pretty much, your stamina isn't really wasted while running, of course. Of course, the notebooks can be, they can be real annoying. They can practically be another way of using traps, but not really the type of traps that would stop you. They wouldn't stop you in your place, of course. They would not stop you. But they would kind of, mess up your movement, and it can especially be a pain when you're in a chase. But, yeah, to end game, so the end round Baldy is, he's okay. He's okay. To play against, though, that can be an or an okay. I kind of want to say an but, like, okay, so he's okay to play against when it's a pro, but if it's just an amateur or a noob, then he's, well, I mean, okay, no, if it's a pro to play, alright, let me switch it up a bit. If it's a pro Baldy, then it's to play against, but if it's a noob and noob or an amateur, then it's okay to play against. Baldy, I don't have much for. He's got his moments. Alright, it is what it is. Now to get onto a character that I'm morally intrigued in a lot. Now, of course, as you can see here, we have two. One saying this is the old Springtrap, where and the new Springtrap. This is before. This one is before the after the rework, and this one is before the rework. And the reason is because of that is Springtrap is just like, it's a killer that I feel very sorry for. He's a killer that was straightforward and, in my opinion, very well rounded. His speed, not really being able to, he's the same speed as Survivors, not as much, but he had his moments where, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious. The new Springtrap, ooh, this is a hard one. I'm sorry, but he's an heir to play as. New Springtrap is an heir to play, he's an heir to play as, but playing against, that would be okay. His new rework, I'm sorry, like I said, he went from a good killer to a bad killer in just one update. Again, it really ruined him a lot. His ventilation error just completely ruining him at all. Now all it does is simply blind people, and that may be somewhat helpful-ish, but when it's against someone who knows the maps right, it's not going to do much at all. It really isn't. Now, for his main movement move, that being, I'm pretty sure it's called Phantom Step. That one isn't bad, alright? That one's not bad. There's nothing changed with that one. That one's still the same as it is, and I think that's a good ability in general. Phantom Step is so for new Springtrap, Phantom Step is pretty much the best ability that Springtrap has. His other one, not so much. Not so much. I mean, you can easily get both when you hit, I forgot to explain, but when you run into people as when you're using a Phantom Step, they get a fearful effect. Basically, you take more damage from Springtrap now after that. But yeah, new Springtrap is new Springtrap's a big eh. He's air to play as, but he's okay to play against, mostly because he's been hammered down a lot. Now, this is kind of where justice comes for the guy. In the tier list, I highly doubt he's gonna get any rework in the game that'll be any better. But old Springtrap, just very fun to play as. I'm sorry, it's just when you really look at the idea as a very fun play to kill as, you're having fun when you're winning the game. That's the whole gimmick of the game, of Pillow Chase 2 in general. You kill all survivors to win. You don't do that, then that's not really okay, I know I'm being a little I know everyone has different views. Some people will be like, oh yeah, I got a few people, that's okay. But then there are people who, they can't quite take it that way, and it's fair enough. I mean, this game has been seen as very competitive. I know it's silly enough, but for a Roblox game to be taken that seriously, I mean, when you look at games like Phantom Forces, Arsenal, all of that, and you could complain, oh, those are shooting games, of course they're going to be competitive. Pillow Chase 2 has that other sort of competitive to it, but old Springtrap, very fun to play as. His old ability guaranteed kills so easily. He was a straightforward, well-rounded character, alright? A monster, sorry. In general. He's very fun to play as. As for playing against, though, he's gonna go in that one, in the bottom, and honestly, fair enough. Even I hated it. I hated playing against old Springtrap, alright? And you know what? That was okay. I could deal with that, because then I could also play as Springtrap myself, the old Springtrap, and easily get the same type of result that the Springtrap I would have been playing against did get. Of course, it depends on the player, alright? That's also another big thing. But it's pretty, he's a simple character. Old Springtrap good, new Springtrap just bad in general. He was straightforward, alright? He got the job done. Old Springtrap knew what he was doing. Guaranteed kills, guaranteed win. It's how it works. I know people could be complaining about that a lot. I know people are like, oh, why does it have to drastically in like again? It only drastically like I understand why people would complain about that, and that's fair enough. But it's one killer. If you had multiple killers who did that, then that would be pretty unfair. But I think the whole news, like, with old Springtrap's like abilities, like it's pretty straightforward. Like in general, it was pretty straightforward. Yeah, it was fair enough that they could complain that his old abilities was stupendous, and the fact that it would drastically decrease your stamina to the point where you were dead. You were dead where you stood. If you've seen some of my old vids, if you've seen some of my video of Pillar Trace vids, you've seen me play Springtrap, and you can pretty much look at all the moments that I've played as Springtrap, old Springtrap, and I've played against. Notice how I don't play the new one? I think it's pretty obvious. He's bad. No one, like, he's just bad in general. Just ruined ever since he was reworked. And, well, I'm surprised why no one plays him. I'm honestly not, like, the only one who would play him would be new people because they're interested. Like, oh, Springtrap. Oh, I wonder what he can do. But they're not gonna have any fun when it comes to that. New Springtrap, not good. Old Springtrap, yeah, just whatever. Now for yeah, MX, Big Boy Mario, Forest King. Yeah, I'm not even gonna. Yeah, I'm gonna be pretty careful with how I yeah. But with MX, you know what? He's very fun to play as. MX has the same issue with he has the okay, so he has the same okay, so he has the same issue. Has the same thing compared to old Springtrap. Old Springtrap was very fun to play. Same goes with MX. He's not really changed one bit, and I don't think he'll change anytime sooner. And you know what? That's okay. That's fair enough. All right, that's fair enough. All right, I never liked going against him at all. All right, it really depends. Like, if you're up against a good MX, then you're cooked from the start. There's no point. Just end it. Don't do that. That's in game, of course. Don't like just reset character. If you can't do that, then I don't know. Find some way to do that. But yeah, but he has the same issue to Old Springtrap. He's very fun to play as, but not so fun to play against. But for MX, he's an to play against. Like with New Springtrap, he was inescapable, almost inescapable, practically inescapable at most times. Depends on the player, of course, who's playing Old Springtrap. But MX, he gives you a sort of chance still. Like when he first came out, he would instantly put you in. Alright, before his whole nerfs, when he first came out, his damage was stupendous, putting you in broken bones, and pretty much just, you know, another way of saying you're cooked. Alright, so I know I could have made an old, thing, but I'm only doing that for reworks. Of course, you will realize that I don't have another one for Uncle Samsonite. That's because you'll find out eventually. It's not really any different in my opinion, but other than that, yeah. So old MX, of course, instantly put you on broken bone, and you could never escape most of the time, and you were dead. So old MX would have been on this to play against, but now that his nerfs have kind of simmered him down a bit, of course he's still up on top, ish, but he's to play against. Of course, this depends on the player, but yeah, that's pretty much how it is. Now, next on the list, I'm not sure who came after. I think it was weird yellow smiling thing and then Forest King. I'm not. No, it was Forest. Yeah, Forest King. Forest King is one that I've not gone against much, but I have a good idea of how they work. Basically, pretty simple. It's pretty simple. They have a set of abilities that basically An ability that allows you to launch a slow-moving projectile. It hits someone, and then they're trapped in this sort of, just like imagine they're just like the projectile hits them, and they get trapped in this sort of circle, and they can't move out of that circle until the move is, yeah, it'll summon a tree, and that tree will basically create its own barrier where you cannot move out of that barrier. It's a circle mainly, and of course, once you're hit with one of that, it's pretty much over at this point. But yeah. For her other abilities, such as her projectile ones, and the whole gimmick with the fact that she does more damage when she's, not sprinting. She does 45. I'm pretty sure she does 45 when she's not sprinting. But if she is sprinting, then it is, it's like 25. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, pretty okay character, to say the least. As for how you'd play her, she's okay to play as, and she's to play against. I guess again, this highly depends on the player playing Forest King, so it makes sense. And I've not got much to say about. I've not got much about to say. I'm not really got much to say about Forest King in general. And we will move on. And of course, yeah, that's pretty much it. Next up would be goofy fucking Pac-Man wannabe. I don't know. WIST. Whist or WIST. With him, he's gonna have to be. He's fun to play as, but he's not the same as these three. He's fun to play as, but I wouldn't. To be honest, he's to play against. Was that the same what I said with these guys? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure with these guys I said they were okay to play against. Whist, on the other hand, is an to play against. Of course, this depends on the player, of course. Again, I'm highly depending it on, very fun to play as, and to play, but yeah. He's fun to play as, with his frenzy, basically giving you a good sight of where everyone is, and with his gobble bomb abilities. But yeah, not much said about him. Of course, with his range, it can definitely be a pain to get away from the bastard if he's actually close to you. Again, really, the only thing you really gotta do with Whist is keep a long distance at all times, because that range is, it's not gonna be easy to get away from, unless the Whist runs out of stamina, or he's a bit janky with how he moves and all that. It makes sense. And we'll move on from him. Next, we will go for is I forgot Uncle Samsonite. Right, silly me. All right, Uncle Samsonite. Okay to play as. New Uncle Samsonite is okay to play as. His rework, his old rework, or old Uncle Samsonite, I don't have one sadly, because I just didn't care enough for Uncle Samsonite, because let's be real, I don't really care much about him, but I'm not gonna just single him out, but his old rework, his range of when it came to his range in general was pretty good. He had his abilities. He had I'm pretty sure, a dance ability. I think he was the first killer with 3. A domain, a dance, and alright, I forgot. Does he have? I'm pretty sure he does have 3, unless that's not the case. I'm not too sure off the top. I'm gonna have to check real quick. Give me a sec. Monsters, right? Give me a sec. Uncle Samsonite. It'll be pretty simple. Give me a sec. Uncle Samsonite, yeah. Beat down Uncle's Wrath and Domain Traversal. I'm not sure if it was a new one or not. Right. Okay. There. Okay. All right. There we go. Checked his abilities. Right. His old one. He had 3 abilities. A Domain Traversal. You can go into the domain. Increases the timer by, I think, 15 seconds. Or maybe a little higher. I'm not too sure. But it increases the timer. Goes into a domain. And there's a bunch of doors. You pick one door. It'll lead you to any waypoint of the map. Anywhere on the map. It's basically Uncle Samsonite's way of moving around the map. Basically, It's basically his teleportation type thing. Of course, we'll talk about teleporters in a sec. But when it comes to Uncle Samsonite, yeah, he has a his old one had him. He had a move where he could take someone to the domain, and his other ability was a dance. Was basically anyone in a close radius of him would basically be locked into a dancing emote, and they could not move until the dance meter. It's the whole gimmick with the dance meter. I'm sure if you look it up on the wiki, which I just looked on right now, you'll kind of get a good gimmick. But you have a dance meter. It gets fully. If it's full, then you will dance, and you are stunned, and you can't do anything until either Uncle Samsonite hits you, or the dance meter goes all the way down. Now, of course, now with the new one, it's a bit different. He no longer has the move that allows him to take people into domains, but instead it's more of a passive. He can still do that, but I'm pretty sure he can only do it when people are dancing. Of course, I think it's a more easier way of kind of making him a little more rounded. Of course, it was replaced with a shockwave ability that would increase the dance meter by a lot. Pretty much making it to the point where if you were to use dance near you, you'd be instantly dancing, and you just would be kind of cooked from there, to be honest. Again, I don't want to keep explaining too much about him, because, to say the least, it's not the best, but, it is what it is. Next one on the list, Nilo. Fun to play as. And, to play against. Of course, this is for the new one. The old one, he was much more faster. Pretty much, his old one would get him in very fun. But since his notch down from his speed, he's still probably one of the quickest. He is the quickest character, to say the least. If you don't include this little bugger's whole ability, whole passive with whenever he kills, he gets a massive speed boost and all that. But other than that, it's the usuals. Nilo has his usual moves: a godly leap and a irradiation mist move. When you use radiation mist, it pours some sort of like liquid on the floor. It's probably blood from what we know. Who knows? It depends. But when you use that, it increases the timer, similar to Uncle Samsonite's domain traversal. And then you have his godly leap. Now, okay. Basically another grab move, so EXE isn't the, I just remembered, yeah, EXE isn't the only one who can grab. Two characters can grab, Nilo and EXE. Of course, when you get caught in these, they bite you, both of them bite you. But with Nilo, he does less damage when he bites, but with EXE, he probably does a plenty, probably 40, if not 30, I think, when you grabs people. But yeah. The whole gimmick with Nilo is the fact that he was very fast, but he's basically a better Rosemary. Which is why he's morally above Rosemary. For his old rework, he's old before not his rework, sorry, but he's just old in general before the nerfs, of course. He was very fun to play as. As for play against, we would have put him here. But yeah. Next on the list, Vita Mimic. Now, Vita Mimic at first didn't interest me, until I tried him out, and honestly, he's fun to play as. And honestly, he's okay to play against. Now, I think that's the same with these three. Of course, these two are very different, but with Vita Mimic, he had his abilities. His passive, every kill he gets, he does more damage. It caps out at 30, but it starts out at 15. He has two abilities, one of them called Elder Ascension. He goes completely transparent, well, not transparent. It's like a transparent black, and you can easily see it if you actually use your eyes. It's very hard to notice, but on very bright maps, it's pretty obvious by now that he's right there. But, yeah. And then he has other abilities, such as, I forgot what it was called again, but basically anyone near him gets marked, and whenever he hits a player that is marked, he adds a bleed effect, which I must say, does a lot of damage over time, and is a pretty good move in general. Makes him a very well-rounded character, and his speed is moderately okay. He can catch it. He can't really catch up to survivors. He's morely on. He's on par with survivors. The same with other killers such as Aoni and Whist and all that, and maybe other killers too, like Rosemary. To play against, I'd say he's pretty okay to play against. I mean, if you play your cards right, you'll definitely win against him, or you'll probably muck up and may die. It depends. But other than that, yeah, he's fun to play as, but he's okay to play against. Now, for Wadi, the disciple and descendant of Aoni here. Of course, Fuwadi can't really do the same things, but he's morely a younger and stupider version, but that does not mean he is... That does not mean he is bad. He's fun to play as. Haven't played him, but again, I've seen how he's played, and it's pretty obvious to tell how he's played. Has a dash ability with stupendous range, does a stupid ton of damage, and another one which is Oni Vision, which is basically the same as Oni. And with his new update, he gets every time, of course, if the Silly Rush doesn't hit anyone, then he simply either stops in place, or if he runs into a wall, he gets 25 stamina back. He's fun to play as. I would say he's to play against. Depends on the player, like I said. This goes for everyone. Depends on the player highly. So, yeah. Not much to say for Wadi. Very annoying, but overall, very fun to play as, of course. Like, I couldn't really complain too much about Furwadi. I would have the same fun playing all the killers, except the ones that are, of course, well, here, of course. I've pretty much played as every single one of these killers but WIST and Furwadi. Other than these lot too, of course, new Springtrap, I've given him a go. It's still not good. Now for the main, the talk of the town. The recent boy, Inkfell. The Ink Demon with steroids. The Ink Demon with steroids. I would say that. But after his somewhat, I would say nerf, but it's not really a nerf. All the nerf really did was notch his... Alright, so to explain things, he's on par with the speed as, he's got lower speed than EXE. EXE has 19 sprint speed. Inkfell has a lot more sprint speed, not a lot more sprint speed, he has less sprint speed, but stamina in general, he has the most. The one who had the most sprint stamina before Inkfell would have been Springtrap, but... No more. That's just not the case. But yeah, Inkfell, he has 3 abilities. A dash ability that whenever you run into someone and actually run into them, not catch any of them with your arm or your wings or any of your hitbox, you run into them, they become inked, and when they're inked, they are slowed a lot. And well, when you're slowed, and if the Inkfell is near that, then you're dead. There's no surviving that. You're just dead. Not even Inkfell's speed could pretty much get in the way of that. He has a portal ability. He used to be able to place, I'm pretty sure, up to 3 portals. I'm not too sure off the top of my head, but now you can play 7 because, God, and especially a pain. And then he has an AoE move. I forgot what it was called. It was called Devil's Rage. That's the move that I was going. It did originally 45 damage. Now it does 35. It was notched down by 10, and of course the portals. That was with the nerf. I don't know if you could really call that a nerf, but And of course his CD for I forgot what it was called again. His CD for Devil's Rage, I think it was. I'm not too sure off the top of my bat. But yeah, he has an AoE move, portal move, basically a transportation move. No one can cancel these or anything, which is a shame. You can't, it's with EXE, you can cancel those traps, but you can't cancel any of Inkfell's things, and if you try and get near them, you'll just end up getting inked, and, well, he can travel through every portal, and every portal he comes out of explodes after he comes out, meaning that anyone in a very close mile radius is dead. Well, not dead, but they are more likely screwed because they all get inked and they all, they're all getting their health gets notched down a lot. Now for Inkfell, I'm sorry, I couldn't say it. He's fun to play as. As for playing against, it's a bit of an eh. Now this depends on player, but also depends on map. A map where a terrible map choice would be big maps, where you can easily dodge the portal without getting inked, but he has the same thing with EXE. Fazbear Fright for both of these killers, EXE and Ringfell, are death sentences. You're dead, and there's just no point in trying. There really is no point in trying. Like, at this point, you shouldn't even bother. Like, of course, again, given how big the portals are and how big the hitbox is, makes it to be a really, really, really pain in the buttocks. It really is a pain. It really is. Other than that, Inkfell, fun to play as, and to play against. And I think, yep, that racks up the Pillar Trace 2 rendered version tier list. I made this, of course, but of course anyone else can find this if they want. It depends if they want to. I don't know if I can now, but yeah, this was my tier list. And of course, everyone has their opinions. You can easily argue. I mean, everyone could easily argue that old Springtrap was just, he deserved his rework. I think he was okay, to be honest. And if you kept it the same, I think you'd be seeing a lot more Springtraps than you usually would be. Not that that's an issue, of course. I mean, it would really suck for but other than that, that's my tier list. And yeah, I will be seeing you all later.